All right, you guys. So my attempt to explain the performance task to many of you is going to be undertaken in this video. So before you ask me any questions, make sure you are watching this video. You should only be asking me questions about revising or looking at your thesis statement or something that has to do with the actual content. Otherwise, everything that you need to know for your performance task is going to be here. All right, so first thing is first. I want you guys to look at your notes from early America. In your notes, you have this, you will have this definition of civil disobedience. You need that definition for your performance task. This is the question that I'm asking you. Civil disobedience is the refusal to comply with certain laws or to pay taxes and fines as a form of peaceful protest towards something political. So this is only done when the people are angry at the government for usually a law that has been enacted or for having to pay taxes that are unlawful. So if you remember, we talked about, and I'll show you guys here, we talked about, the Boston Tea Party, right? The Boston Tea Party. That was an act of rebellion. They were mad that they were having to pay taxes to the king in Great Britain. Not only that, but in history, Martin Luther King, he did a lot of protests. All of those were civil disobedience, acts of civil disobedience. Okay, so look at your definitions. Okay, what is the difference between resistance and then what is the difference between civil disobedience? All right, so now that you have that, okay, we're going to go back to talking about your performance task and what you have to do exactly. So, your goal is to create a presentation in which you would discuss the role of civil disobedience in our society and whether it's effective in challenging social justice. So there are many things that people are not happy with right now because it is taking away their rights. And it's not just now, it's been like this for as long as this country has been a country. Okay, as we saw with the Declaration of Independence, and we saw that with the speech of the Virginia Convention by Patrick Henry. Okay, so, but I want you to think about society today. So, in that way, you're answering this question right here. Is the act of civil disobedience effective in fighting social issues in America today? Why or why not? So, does something like protesting actually make a change? Okay, so what you are doing is you're going to be providing your findings on research. So you're going to have to look stuff up on one of these four social issues here. Okay, socioeconomics, which includes things like poverty or the pay gap or healthcare. Okay, or racial. Okay, you could talk about things like Black Lives Matter or Native American rights or the rights of immigrants or the rights of Latino people in this country or the rights of Muslims. There is a big Islamophobia. There is a lot of people who just don't like Muslim people for no apparent reason other than maybe they're afraid for no reason. Okay, you can also look at environmental things. So I mentioned fracking, air pollution, deforestation, water. Like a couple of years ago, there was a crisis in Flint, Michigan, where their water was coming out contaminated. And I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with that at all, but that hasn't been fixed. The people in Michigan, in this little town, still do not have clean water. And it's been like 3 or 4 years. Okay? And then the last one that you can look up is gender issues. Okay? All right. So the first thing that you need to do is pick one of these four things to talk about. Once you pick that, that issue, then you need to decide whether you think that something like protesting or taking a stand or, having sit-ins or whatever it is, do those kinds of actions actually help in terms of creating social change, in terms of actually sending a message? Okay? In that sense, then what you can do is you can use my sample thesis. Civil disobedience is or is not useful when addressing a social issue because. Okay? Remember, your thesis has to have 3 different reasons why. You cannot have a thesis statement that is only this first part. That is not a powerful thesis statement. So, in that sense, what you would do would be something like this. So let's say I have chosen to talk about racial issues of social or racial issues. Okay, so I'm going to say that civil disobedience is useful when addressing racial issues, and then you have to come up with your 3 reasons why. So these 3 reasons are coming from you. Okay, if you don't know where to start, you can do some kind of research to try and see what has been done in terms of these things. Otherwise, you can just come up with them from, your own knowledge. But something that you can do is go to the document that I gave you on Google Classroom. Okay, so go ahead and open that one up. It looks like this. Civil disobedience performance task. And you can scroll down and check out some of these websites that I gave you. Okay, so if I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, I can look at this website here. Okay, so this one talks about how America's new generation of civil rights activists is mobilizing in the age of Trump. So I would read through it. And essentially, what I would do is I would try to see if any of these things are actually helping, are actually, if they can help me in terms of coming up with 3 things to write about. Okay, so for mine, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to say civil disobedience is useful when addressing racial issues because you are connected with other people who think like you. Okay, and then I'm also going to say there is power in numbers. And many other racial issues have been addressed by protests in the past. Okay, so now I have my thesis statement. Civil disobedience is useful when addressing racial issues because you are connected with other people who think like you. There is power in numbers, and many other racial issues have been addressed by protests in the past. Okay, so now I'm going to take this thesis and I'm going to plug it in to my template. Okay, and you guys all have this template. Okay, so I would plug it into the second one here. Whoops. I'm going to make this white so you can see it. And all right, now I have my thesis statement. Now, every single one of these reasons that I listed is going to become your headlines or your titles for your facts, okay, your facts pages. So I can literally take those and plug them in here, okay, and then I can fix them to make them shorter. So connected to like-minded people. And then the second thing I want to talk about is power in numbers. And then the last thing that I'm going to talk about is how other issues have been fixed by protests in the past. So for that, I'm going to focus on Martin Luther King. I'm sorry, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s protest. Okay? So, now when it comes to this, now I have to go out there and I need to do some research. So, after I'm running out of time, I have to do this in under 15 minutes. But essentially, what I would do is then I would take this research and I would put it in here. Like, for example, in terms of becoming connected, I know that Black Twitter, when Black Lives Matter first started, Black Twitter was one of the ways in which people became connected and how Black Lives Matter became an actual organization. So Black Twitter became a way in which people who hated racism towards the Black community became a way in which people who hate racism towards the Black community came together to take a stand. Okay? So, for this, I need to make sure that I have something to back it up. So, in terms of that, then I can use something like this. So following the shooting of Michael Brown and an unarmed black teen, many young African Americans posted pictures of themselves on Twitter under the hashtag #IfTheyGunnedMeDown. Okay? And so I can use maybe something like this as a quote. Though it isn't a replacement for the kind of activism of the old civil rights movement, this university professor says that the hashtag response to Michael Brown's shooting shows that technology makes it easier to respond. So I can talk about that. Whoops. I believe it's here. So technology has made it easier for people to come together. Okay, and then I would take this website and save it down here so that on Thursday when I show you guys how to format your Works Cited page, you have all your websites ready to go. Okay, so don't forget to have a picture for each of your slides. The only one that does not need a picture is your Works Cited page. Every other page needs to have a picture. Okay? The presentation is not going to make itself. You have to go through and you have to put some effort to come up with your thesis statement. You have to use your head. You have to weave it together. You cannot just simply go through Google, type something out, and hope to get an answer. This has to come from you. Just remember, civil disobedience means protest, and you are trying to talk about one of these social issues. Okay? I hope this helps. Please submit your thesis statement. Please make sure you have finished this by the time you come in on Friday, because on Friday we are presenting. All right. Hope this helps.